Are you ready to play Dominoes?
It's not as fun as it sounds.
No, it is not.
But there is strategy, and it is a bit of a game when it comes to real estate and dominoes.
And there's also lots of other games that go along with it. It sometimes ends up being kind of a Rube Goldberg kind of thing we're playing with. But what we're talking about is contingencies, and we haven't seen them in a while. Probably the last contingent offers we were writing was the end of last fall's market. And then through this crazy spring, they haven't even been whispered because it's been impossible to beat other offers. So it's also, I was thinking another game it's very much like is rock, paper, scissors. So when we're putting in offers and we know that there are multiples, then the objective is to beat the other offers. So you're not negotiating with the seller, you're negotiating against other buyers. And very often you get one shot. So yes, agents often call for what's called highest and best, where we ask everybody to go back and make sure that the offer they've given us is their best. But that's not a rule. It's not required. Many times we have sellers who say, we've got a great offer, let's take it. Or we've got 10 great offers and this one is the best and we just want to say yes to it. So trying to figure out what your opponent or opponents are going to do in the rock, paper, scissors game is a big part of the question. And so everything is, there's kind of a hierarchy of, what would you say, of offers, right?
You know, that's funny you should say that because, right now we're in this kind of odd transition period where, yeah, there are some things that weren't happening a couple months ago are happening. Cash buyers, which months ago were going, yes, here's offer price, possibly even higher, here's cash. I'm already seeing cash buyers go, I'm cash, here's $20,000 less.
So, well, I think a lot of people are reading the headlines and not the articles.
Correct.
Right. And so they think that that it's a buyer's market, which it's nowhere near. They think that that prices are cascading downward when all we're really seeing is that pushing the price isn't working.
Correct.
And we may not be ending up leapfrogging price-wise way over what the last one was. So little bit difference in interpretation, which we see all the time. So I think there's just buyers who are also not getting it, don't you think?
Right. So there was a hierarchy a couple months ago. We're going to get back to that hierarchy, but right now I think the winning bid or the winning offers right now are the more serious buyers.
Yes, absolutely. So what this new market is bringing is triers instead of buyers, right?
Yes.
We'll throw something at it and see if they take it. In most cases, well-priced properties in very good condition are getting offers and often multiple. And so we still have to be strategic and looking at that hierarchy. Cash is usually the best as long as the price makes sense. The next thing would be conventional financing with 20% down or more. All of these things feed into the strength of the buyer and the seriousness of the buyer from the seller's side. And then one thing that can really make your offer risky to a seller is a contingency. And we have a couple of different types of contingencies, real estate contingencies in our market. One is a home sale contingency and one is a home close contingency. So how are those different, Danielle?
Well, it just comes down to how far in the process you are. So there's a portion in our offer slash contract that talks about home where they are. Basically, they have a home to sell prior to being able to get their financing for this new home that they're looking for. So a home sale contingency basically says that they are on market currently or about to go on the market currently with their current house, and that they are going to give a date that they hope to have their house under contract by, and a home. And once we get to that date, if it is not met, it kind of goes back to negotiations. Do the sellers want to give them another date to move forward with, or do they just want to cancel the contract? That is one of those dates that the seller has to wait until, because they did agree to it. But once that contingency is not met, we start to figure out, I know, little late, but yes, people are starting to take contingencies again. So they've got to decide if they are going to extend that or not. Now, a home close contingency means that they already have an offer on their house. They've already negotiated that and have a solid contract. Now, as an agent for the seller, you want to get that information from them to find out, okay, have they gone through the AI process? Where are they on their buyer's contingency?
And really, how risky is it and how likely is it to close? And Nicole, yes, people are taking contingencies, but not across the board and not easily. And typically what I tell our clients is you have to buy that contingency. You have to make up for any deficiency that you have in your offer. You need to make up for it with money. So
Right.
most of the time you're going to offer 5 or 10 or 15, depending on the price point, $1,000 higher in
Correct.
order to get your offer looked at, despite the fact that it has a contingency.
Correct.
Then on the other side, you're probably going to take whatever offer comes to you as quickly as possible so that you can meet that contingency. So it still puts people at a disadvantage. And if somebody's got another offer, they're taking it. So that's it. They're not going to take a contingency if they have anything decent to replace it with. So being homeless, not needing to sell will still help with an offer. Absolutely, when it's time to buy.
Yep. It's simpler. It's less risk. I mean, that's really what it is. Risk. It comes down to risk. And when we talk about these dominoes, it is basically layering risk on after risk, which is what dominoes is, right? You stack one up. You have a home sale. Then you put another another domino there because that has a contingency. So for this to follow through, you need this. But then the dominoes start where the buyer of this property has something to sell or is under contract.
So basically, if someone is looking at offers and one of them has a contingency and one of them does not, they're going to take the non-contingent offer. The next thing they're going to look at, if they only have one offer and it's a contingent offer, is does that have a contingency? So if it's a home sale or a home close contingency, does that buyer also have something to sell, as Danielle just said? That's what we're talking about when we say dominoes. So sometimes in specific markets where it's more prevalent, we can see dominoes stacked up. I had one once that was 7 deep.
I can't even believe that. Like, I can't even imagine the stress. It is so stressful, Nicole.
It was so unbelievably stressful. Like that episode of Grey's with all the moving parts for a kidney transplant. Exactly. And when I was in that 7 domino transaction, the first one started to wobble. And I needed to reach across several transactions to help that lender and that buyer's agent get back on track so that everybody else could close their transactions. We closed late. It was extremely stressful. For a few days, everybody had their lives on trucks. And it was really, really hard, but it did get done. But those are the reasons why people don't want to take a contingency. So for a client who needs to sell in order to buy, there's a certain amount of security involved in a contingency because they know that they're not going to have to pay 2 mortgages or own 2 houses, and they're going to complete the sale of the first one before they complete the sale of the second one. But for all other things, it is very risky and very frightening for everyone else involved.
But that's not to say that it won't happen again, which is why we're talking about this, that we might just find ourselves, especially as people get a little closer, if values of houses come down a little bit or stagnate, people might not have as much equity in their house. So they might have to keep it at a certain price or, different things like that. Or
it's just going to take longer to sell and it might not sell for what they need it to. And so all of those in this past market, it's been pretty selling has been a relatively secure thing to do. But in most markets, it's not. And especially when we're unsure of where pricing is going and all of that kind of stuff, it gets a little more wobbly. And the other thing to remember too is people like the idea of a contingency because they want to know where they're going to move to.
Absolutely.
So that person in the middle of a contingency, the person who needs to sell their house and wants to buy, wants to do a contingency because they feel like that gives them a measure of security. However, in our contract, we have what's called the kick-out clause. And that says that if the seller gets another offer, they can take it, and you as the buyer have a certain number of hours, 24 to 48 to 72 hours, to drop your contingency. So unless you are able to do that financially and the lender okays it, you're probably not going to be able to. So that means that anytime during the process, the seller can pretty much take another offer. And that has happened. It's awful when it happens.
Yes.
And that doesn't really give you the security that you think it does.
Right.
And that's another reason to make that offer really good, so that if they get another offer, they're less tempted to take it.
You out. Yes. And another reason to have really good, quick people on your side that can do things quickly too. So if you can't, if you get up against that clock and you finally get an offer or something like that, you need your team to be able to make sure you're hitting all the other deadlines, and asking the right questions of that contract that you might take, to make sure that, you're not risking, because guess what? And this is another thing to consider, and this is even scarier, is if you get to a certain point and they kick you out, you're under contract for your sale.
Yeah.
Getting kicked out of your buy is not going to kick that buyer out of your sale. You're still selling your house. Your contract is still strong. So that is another thing to consider. But again, Ruth, I know I personally had several, probably 4 or 5 clients over the last couple of years who could not buy and sell at the same time, or needed to. They
right.
had a place to sell. They did not have the ability. Some of them started out thinking they had ability. Oh, I have a parent's house or something I could go to. And things happen. Something happened with the parent's house and they didn't have that availability. So now they're finally in that market where we've been before, where it's like, oh, okay, these people are going somewhere and now we're going to move in, and people do allow that. It is okay. We're just as always, we try to give you the good and the bad.
Right. Exactly.
Know what to expect. But this is normal. This having a contingency. I've sold many, many houses prior to the last 2 years that had contingencies. And I have a contract right now that has a contingency that may or may not go through.
Yes. Yeah. And Nicole, you're asking about if somebody comes in 10 over, but they have a contingency and you have an at list offer, yours in most cases would be superior to an offer with a contingency just because it's really high risk. So, and then Piccadilly and Sugar Court, two of Nicole's houses that we bought and sold a few years ago, was super stressful. And we put that contingent offer on. And that was a case where I'm on the other side of a similar case right now, where we put an offer in on a house. My clients put an offer in on a house and then found out that the seller of that house has a contingent offer on another house. And I believe it's the same listing agent. So just like in that case, I said to the sellers of Piccadilly, I'm confident that you can take this contingency because I am the one selling their house and I know that I can do that. And that's probably what happened on this one. So that, minimizes the risk. Anything that mitigates risk is going to make that offer better. Anything that increases it is going to make it more difficult. So hopefully we've answered some questions about contingencies. We're going to see some more of them coming soon, but they are still always going to be lesser because they're more risky offers. They should accompany some better terms. So as is, higher price, all of that, you have to understand how much at a disadvantage you are with a contingency, and you have to overcome that to get accepted, but also stay in it as other people might be coming. So I've had a couple of cases, again, the end of last year, before the crazy market started, we had some contingencies because my clients made really good offers. They were able to withstand other offers coming in that the sellers did not bump them for. So that's something to really keep in mind. This is not, when you go in with a contingent offer, you are not looking to save $10 a month.
No.
And then, by the way, don't ask for a laundry list at inspection. You are on unsteady ground. You're standing in quicksand. Don't make the seller want to kill your deal.
Trust me, that's what they'll want to do.
Yes, and Nicole brings up a good point. That is why listings often say accepting backup offers. So that those backup offers are for some security for their seller, but also to keep the buyer's feet to the fire.
Correct.
So thanks for joining us again, Nicole, and anybody else who joined us but didn't make comments. And we will see you next week for Putting the Real in Real Estate.
Bye-bye.
If you're an agent, we'll see you on our agent YouTube channel. Look for my name, and it's called Raise the Bar in Real Estate. See you, Nicole.
Bye-bye. You have a good weekend too.